It's not difficult to control and destroy the masses when one controls the mediums of information and can enact laws which prohibit verification, imprison the people who question the official narrative, and censor the people who have been blessed with the truth. In fact, it is a sign of the greatest form of cowardice when the truth is suppressed. And many of you understand that the enemy, the evil of this world, are cowards. They are cowards. It doesn't matter how evil they are cowards. And they fear truth. They fear the one true God. They fear Jesus Christ. This is why there's so much suppression, because they hate the truth. Because the truth will mean you will pull the mask off them and you will see them for what they truly are. They're hardly blessed. They're hardly chosen. They're just pure evil. They are vessels fitted for destruction. In this video, I want to talk to you about immigration. How did it really start? What's the process? And I'm going to teach you today how it actually works. Because most folks, when they talk about it left, right, they don't seem to understand how it actually works. I mean, how does it really work? Who gave permission? How did the process start? And how is it different from 25 years ago, 100 years ago, or even 200 years ago? And we'll look at the truth for what it really is. We'll be honest and we will speak the truth. We're going to look at a video from CBS News from 40 years ago about Thomas Jefferson and the United States battling Islam. And it's not a hit piece against Islam, at least my video is not. What CBS News was trying to do, because all of the media is owned by Babylon, okay? So what this piece was, it was to garner support for the state of Israel. And it was to stir up in the American people support for Israel and their patriotism and move it against Islam. However, it would never happen today. Now, the video was not designed to help America. It was designed to help Israel. The video, the quality is not very good. The audio is not very good, but it screams knowledge because you can see how the people have changed. Something bigger is being portrayed here. And that's what we're going to look at. And then I'm going to give you some commentary and I'm going to show you the truth of how immigration actually works, because most folks simply just don't know how it works. You hear it talked about constantly, left and right, center, all these folks who all work for the same master, but they never tell you the truth of how it actually works. You see, what they do is they play both sides against the middle. Before we get to the video, let me give you a quote by Thomas Jefferson, and I just want you to consider what this man is saying. The first consideration in immigration is the welfare of the receiving nation, and a new government based on principles unfamiliar to the rest of the world and resting on the sentiments of the people themselves. The influx of a large number of new immigrants, unaccustomed to the government of a free society, could be detrimental to that society. Immigration, therefore, must be approached carefully and cautiously. Well, those words have been tossed out the window, and many people will say that men like Thomas Jefferson and George Washington and so many others, Adams, that these men were Freemasons, they were this, they were that. And you know what? Many of them were part of secret societies. But however, many of them were also, they were used by the Almighty Father, because when this country was being founded, it was part of prophecy. Because many of the people that came to this country were the true Israelites. The true Israelites of the Bible. It's part of prophecy. Many of the founding fathers loved Jesus Christ. I will read you a quote from Patrick Henry here shortly. Many of them loved Jesus Christ. They loved the Almighty Father. They loved this country. They believed in what they were doing and what this country was to stand for. So let's go to this video. And I just want you to watch the video, and I want you to think about what's being portrayed. And then when it's done, let's go further and we'll learn the process of what it really takes for people to come to this country and who's behind it, the money, what it really takes. We'll go deeper. I appreciate you guys watching.
Historical subjects. His historical subject tonight, Thomas Jefferson and Islamic fundamentalism.
When word reached Monticello in the summer of 1801 that the U.S. consulate in Libya had been sacked by a mob, that the consul, his wife and baby girl had to flee for their lives to the safety of the Danish embassy, where they hid for 10 days until smuggled from the city, President Thomas Jefferson was not surprised. For 17 years, he had been the country's leading hawk for war against militant Islam. Is that surprising, that this gentle deist philosopher, supposed pacifist, the father of American liberalism, was so bellicose? Since 1784, hijacking and hostage-taking by the Muslimen, as Muslims were then called, had plagued the country, while he, John Adams, and Ben Franklin had been the first American diplomats to negotiate for hostages. There were 14 the day he became Secretary of State in 1790, more than 100 when he stepped down in 1793. By the time he entered the White House, scores of Americans had died in hellish slavery, and the government had spent millions on ransom, tribute, and building a navy to meet the menace. The conservative Federalists had followed European-style diplomacy in the Mediterranean, submitting to the kidnappers' demands. But Jefferson was adamant. What galled him was not only the presence of cash, gold, silver, jewelry, but the arms shipments that completed the blackmail. His word. Cannon, tar, pitch, shot, whole warships. Our first military assistance program overseas. Worse, the kidnappers weren't even real pirates, but Islamic fundamentalists who justified their terrors by their faith. For Barbary pirates was a colloquial and misleading term. Europeans called them that because they preyed exclusively on unarmed merchant ships. But in their own eyes, they were soldiers of the jihad, mujahideen. Unlike the freebooting buccaneers of the Spanish Main, these pirates were, simply, the official navies of 4 sovereign powers carrying out state policy. It was religious, state-sponsored piracy, sanctioned by the jihad. In Barbary days, one man's pirate was another man's mujahid. In 1786, in a hotel room in London, Jefferson and Adams held a secret session with a Libyan ambassador who demanded $100,000 not to begin taking hostages. Sheikh Abdurrahman explained the jihad to them, declared it was his sacred duty to make war on sinners, and that he did not recognize the rules of war against kidnapping civilians because these were written by non-believers. So, on his mountaintop in the summer of 1801, Thomas Jefferson was not surprised. And he had his war. It lasted the 4 years of his first term. One hero was John Rogers. Another commanded the battle schooner USS Enterprise, Lieutenant Stephen Decatur, Jr., after whom 20 American towns and counties would be named. It climaxed with an invasion to the shores of Tripoli, which was, in effect, a successful hostage rescue mission, one of whose heroes was Marine Lieutenant Presley O'Bannon. When the war ended, Congress investigated, justified the president, and, quote, roundly condemned now and for all time the payment of tribute by the United States of America for any reason to any foreign potentate. We look back at the founders, at their powdered wigs and buckled shoes, and say we are not them. We've changed. We've progressed. Maybe.
All right, good people. So you can see after watching that, you can see, first of all, this video was done 40 years ago. You can see how society has changed in the 40 years. You would never see a piece like this done now. The country is far too liberal. It's swung too far to the left, even though the right is not, there's not really much difference because they both work for the six-pointed star. They both serve evil because this country is under punishment. Many of the people in this country are being punished. They just don't know it yet, but the time is coming when they soon will know it. So let's look at how Jefferson 200 years ago, how he felt about a massive influx of people coming. You saw what was done 40 years ago. They would never do a piece like this now, even to promote the state of Israel, which owns all the media, because the people have moved so far to the left. So let's look at the truth of it here. You're not going to hear the truth taught in the mainstream media. They're just talking heads, okay? They work for the six-pointed star. And the alternative media, you'll never hear the truth being told there either. Mouthpieces such as Steven Crowder, Alex Jones, and Ben Shapiro and more, who claim to be conservatives, are nothing more than shills for the Babylonian devils. They all work for the state of Israel. It's just a fact. They're no different than the people on the left. Do not be deceived, people. Our enemy works both sides of this war. The enemy wears many colors and costumes. They pose as your friend and they pose as your enemy because they are your enemy. They play both sides. And when you can understand this, if the Almighty Father will allow you to, then you will finally awaken from your slumber. Let me ask you a question. Many folks love Ben Shapiro and some of these far right-wing people. Ask Ben Shapiro or Alex Jones or Steven Crowder or any of these pro-right-wing people who are no different than the left-wing people. Ask Ben Shapiro, who actually founded Hollywood, and who currently controls the filth, hate, and lies that come from it. Ask him. Or he would have to look in the mirror, because the people that sign his paychecks, whom he is related to, that's who does it. Ask Ben Shapiro, Alex Jones, or Steven Crowder, or any of the talking heads on the right. Ask them about the 40 million Christians murdered and starved in 1917 in Russia. After the Babylonians took over Russia in 1917, they starved and murdered over 40 million Christian Russians, Ukrainians, Georgians, people of the Baltic states, and others from Eastern Europe. Parents were forced to choose which child would not starve to death. Why does the media never talk about these evil and gross crimes? Because they know damn well who is responsible. Because the people that own the media and the banks, they are responsible for the crimes. They are the children of the devil. So if you're going to discuss a subject and learn the truth, then you must not and you cannot listen to the ones who are responsible for the lies and crimes. It is the equivalent of them burning down your house, then telling you it was someone else when they have the matches and gas in their hands. It will be incredibly hard to garner any knowledge and truth from the folks who keep you hypnotized with lies, propaganda, and deceit through their tools of sorcery, which is Hollywood, music, all of entertainment and the internet, social media. They keep you hypnotized with it. Moreover, many people, due to sheer stupidity and cowardice, will never speak up. You see, they don't mind being burned up in their homes. See, they are afraid to speak the truth. They are cowards. Revelation 21:8. Jesus Christ says the fearful will never enter his kingdom. Jesus Christ does not like a chicken dunger. He just doesn't. And I hope you get what I'm saying. John Adams said, liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people. And indeed, how true this is. You see, you have to have knowledge among the folks. The problem is the people are delusional and blind because they have rejected their Creator, the Almighty Father, and the precious gift that He gave us in Jesus Christ. So how did this begin? Well, in Revelation 12, and I just did a video about this called Fallen Angels and the People Flood, it began a long time ago. And if you would like to watch that video, you can learn the truth from the scriptures. In 1965, New York Senator Jacob Javits wrote an article entitled, Let's Open Up the Gates. Of course, being of Babylon, his sole purpose was to destroy true Israel, which is the Israelites are the people that founded this country. Now, I know some of you will say the Native Americans were here, people who call them the people whom that we refer to as Indians. I have nothing against them. The Father gives and the Father takes. And if the Father wants you to have another piece of land or a whole country, He will give it to you. There's nothing nobody can do about it. Jacob Javits proposed that 500,000 immigrants be allowed into the country for 20 years with no restrictions. This was done in the turmoil of the Vietnam War and the cultural change of the 60s. It was by design. And the same thing that's happening now was happening then. They had to prey on the mind of the young people first and the naive. And the people back then are the same as today. The evil of this world knew who to prey on, and they gave them a solution that bring in more people. You see, we have to be fair, even if it means hurting ourselves. So many folks have noticed that the country has changed. Our morals have changed drastically since the time of the folks in this video. Even in the past few decades, our morals and our way of living has drastically changed. However, what has made the biggest impact on this country is the arrival of many different people. Most of these people, not all, but many, dislike America and Americans. The constant line of the devil's children is that we are all immigrants. Well, if that's the case, then would this not be the case for every single country on God's earth? No. You see, the liars, devils, and cons will use this tired old line when it comes to Western culture countries. All other countries are exempt from such lies and attacks except us. Funny, since we as Western culture and white people only make up about 8% of the world's population. Now, all across this country, in small towns, communities, and cities, people have noticed a massive influx from folks from third world countries. Now, this massive influx has had a devastating effect on these communities. So, how did it actually begin? Well, let's get into it, and let's get into the truth of it. This process starts with a group called the United Nations High Commission for Refugees. And these people, they choose the majority of refugees that come to Western culture countries. And this is a board and a group of diabolical monsters. They hate white people. They hate Western culture. They are programmed to destroy. So when you had all these people coming here, I mean all these people, there was very little employment for them. In fact, the few jobs that were available in many of these small towns and communities and cities, they were given to the refugees and taken away from the people of that county, town, or city, and it hurt the folks. The health departments and many of the hospitals were not equipped to deal with the massive influx of people and different forms of diseases and mental illnesses from people in third world countries. The educational system was not prepared to teach the masses of new children in their native languages. There was very little subsidized housing. The police force did not know how to deal with this new influx of people when their hands were tied, because if they were too harsh with them, they were told that they were doing wrong. You see, folks, this was deep. This was deep. The invasion of Western culture, the United Kingdom, Scandinavia, the United States, and Canada has been well planned. It goes back to Revelation 12. However, what most folks fail to understand is the most important questions: who and why. You see, folks, if you really want to get at something, you simply have to ask who and why, and you have to be honest. It's just that simple. Most folks are afraid to do it. So, the U.S. State Department and the United Nations are responsible, all right? But how does it work then? Well, what they do is they distribute the refugees to 9 major contractors in the United States. And the majority of these so-called contractors are so-called religious charities. Now, as I've stated many times, the church is completely corrupt and has become the enemy of the Almighty Father. Now, I'm going to list these contractors here for you. There's 9 of them. And you will notice as you read the list that 6 of them are church-related, so-called religious entities. Now, that's incredibly telling, isn't it? Well, this is why 2 Peter 4:17 says that judgment will begin at the house of God. And none of the corrupt churches in this country or Western culture, when they do their Thursday night or their Sunday morning donations, which is nothing but theft, none of these churches are going to take up a collection to foot the bill for the billions of dollars annually that it takes to bring the refugees to this country. There will be no collection for the billions of dollars of welfare benefits that the refugees receive on arriving and continue to receive upon staying. However, they will continue to make their demonic pastors and preachers wealthy, while the majority of the blind and naive congregation continue to suffer. Remember, the churchgoers are the same folks who actually believe the great lie of who are God's chosen people. When they actually are so naive and have been so dumbed down by the Almighty God himself that they believe that the people in the state of Israel are the Israelites, when the truth is just the opposite. For proof, see my video in the menu box entitled Mystery Solved. I'll show you who we are and where we come from. Now, back to the point. After the contractors have received all these people, they pass all these refugees on to subcontractors. The refugees are sent to approximately 200 cities with 350 subcontractors, and the process continues. The subcontractor's job is to make sure that the refugees are taken care of. They have plenty of money, a place to stay, they have this, they have that, and the money continues to flow in from the U.S. Treasury, which is from the Federal Reserve. Who owns the Federal Reserve? And where does this money come from? Well, it comes from the Federal Reserve, which is not real money. They just create it out of thin air, which means that they take it back from you, the American taxpayer, through your labor, through your suffering, through food, through gas, through medicine, through the things that you need. So you see, they steal from you to get to them. Now, this is the flood that we have studied in Revelation chapter 12. And many blind Americans will moan, complain about making America great again. However, the naive and many godless Trump supporters do not have the courage or the spiritual discernment to point the finger at the monsters that are responsible. And this is one of the things that I have, against so many of these MAGA people. Most of them are white. Many of them have been hurt by the process, but they're too stupid and they're too godless. If they went to their Father and asked for knowledge and wisdom, if their heart was right, they would receive it. They would know who is responsible. You see, when these people go into churches on Sunday and Thursday, and when they support the monsters that are responsible, all they're doing is siding with the enemy and just making the Father even more angry, because they are siding with the ones who are oppressing them. So what you have, folks, you are witnessing punishment upon white people from Almighty God himself. And it will get worse. These people will be broken. They have refused to listen. Now they must feel his wrath, and they most certainly will. These folks follow the six-pointed star. They do not follow Jesus Christ. And for this cause the Father has sent them a strong delusion that they may believe the lie. They may believe the lie. 1 Thessalonians chapter 2 and Isaiah 66:4. Read it for yourself. Here's the truth, folks. The Almighty Father gave us the right of free association. There's no hate involved, folks, just reality. Anti-white ideology has become so all-encompassing and socially acceptable that many no longer even see it and deem the concept of a white genocide to be laughable. I do not fear for the future of my people. Let me explain to you why. I know it seems many are right now at this point, most white folks are ready and willing to fade into non-existence. They just don't care. You give them a TV show, give them a couple pain pills, give them a bag of chips and a drink. They simply just don't care. They don't have the spirit of the Almighty Father in them. This is all part of our Father's plan. Our Father made a covenant with his children, and it's not going to be broken. Men will lie to you. The evil of this world is going to lie to you constantly. The Father does not lie. He made a covenant with the Israelites. He's not going to let you fail, but you're certainly going to have to be taken to the woodshed, have your pants pulled down, and have your rear ends tanned hard. You're going to do some suffering because you deserve it. You've walked away from the Almighty Father. Then, after you've been broken, the Father will rescue his children as he always has. We are in the time of Jacob's trouble. We will be surrounded. No, not the state of Israel, but us. We will be surrounded. The world is against us and it grows worse by the day. We are witnessing prophecy come true right before our eyes. Moreover, behind this diabolical movement to destroy you, is more importantly, is to destroy Christendom, Jesus Christ. You see, the root of Western culture was founded on the following of Jesus the Christ. The overwhelming majority of the refugees that come to this country and Western culture countries do not follow, nor do they believe and love Jesus. Some do, let me say some do, but the vast majority do not. This was foretold thousands of years ago, and it is happening. However, as I've said at this point, you are your own country. You and the small family of folks who share your beliefs and your love for the Almighty Father and Jesus Christ, you are the country. You cannot stop the invasion. Revelation 12 told us about the flood. The Almighty Father will stop it when he's ready. He said he will swallow up the flood. But folks, we're not the Almighty Father. We don't stop nothing. You hear me? If you don't want to drown in this flood, you hold on to Jesus Christ. If you put your hand in the hand of Jesus Christ, how can you be swept up in a flood? I want you to really think about what I just told you. I've always told you that you have the right to defend yourselves. I did 2 videos about self-defense from God. There is a link in the menu box to watch both. Defending yourself is your right from the Almighty Father. However, remember that your guns can jam, you can run out of ammo. However, your Father and Jesus will never fail you ever. It's something to consider. Those who know the truth are called radicals, terrorists, and dissenters. That's what we are. This is why I'm censored. I speak too much truth. It doesn't bother me. The Father allows me to be censored. I'm only supposed to reach a certain amount of people. How can I reach 50,000 people the way I did 3 years ago, when most of these people will actually tell you that the 6-pointed star is of God when it's of the devil? I can't reach those folks. I don't have that power. I do what the Father calls me to do. I think we should close now, and I just want to say a couple verses to you. Just a couple verses to you. I just want you to consider what I'm going to read here to you. In Romans chapter 9, and I've taught you all before, and we've talked about it. If you have not watched my video called Born Evil, Born Bad, that the Almighty Father gave himself an adversary and he gave you an adversary. That's what this life is. We have to overcome constantly. And then you get to a point to where you will become strong in the Almighty Father's might, love, and mercy through Jesus Christ. Romans chapter 9, starting from 13, says, "As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. What shall we say then? Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid." 15, "For he saith to Moses, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. So then, it is not of him that willeth, nor of him that runneth, but of God that showeth mercy. For the scripture saith unto Pharaoh, Even for this same purpose have I raised thee up, that I might show my power in thee, and that my name might be declared throughout all the earth. Therefore hath he mercy on whom he will have mercy, and whom he will hardeneth." If the Father wants to harden somebody, to bring them against you, he's going to do it. 19. Thou wilt say then unto me, why doth he yet find fault? For who hath resisted his will? Can you resist the will of the Almighty Father? You see, folks, billions of blind, naive people believe that they actually can. You're in for a rude awakening, man. A rude awakening. 20. Nay, but, O man, who art thou that repliest against God? Shall the thing say to him that formed it, why hast thou made me thus? 21. Hath not the potter power over the clay, the same lump to make one vessel unto honor and another unto dishonor? 22. What if God, willing to show his wrath and to make his power known, endured with much long suffering the vessels of wrath fitted to destruction? Think about what's being said there. Your Father created evil, these monsters, and he endures them with long suffering, the vessels of wrath fitted to be destroyed. Why? 23 tells us. And that he might make known the riches of his glory on the vessels of mercy, which he had afore prepared unto glory. You, your adversary. Your adversary. Your Father's been doing it all throughout the scriptures. And now I believe we are on the last lap. We are going down the final road. I'm going to close now. I'm going to be working on a video called The Wine of Babylon. I hope it's good. I hope it's powerful. I hope it's moving. I hope to get it done in the next 3, 4, 5 days. I don't know what. And here is my website, flockofjesus.com. It's constantly being worked on. One brother started it. Now another brother is taking over, and it will go as the Father wills it. As the Father says it's going to get done, it will get done. Go there, check it out. I'm going to try to put some more articles on it and a chat room hopefully by this weekend. I've got a brother now who says that he can do it, no problem. So I'm going to say this to you again in closing. If you were in a flood, and there is a flood, in Revelation 12, there is a flood. Not a flood of water, but a flood of people. But it's symbolically water. If you were in a flood, and Jesus Christ said, take my hand, you won't drown. Then, brethren, you don't need a life preserver. You don't need to worry about this or worry about that. You simply need to hold on to the hand of Jesus Christ. Every day of your life, every second, every minute should be you and Jesus Christ. That's it, man. That's all you need. You don't need nothing else. If the Father calls you to do something else, so be it. Let me close by saying this to you. John chapter 14 says, he that hath my commandments and keepeth them, it is he that loveth me, and he that loveth me shall be loved of my Father, and I will love him, and will manifest myself to him. I want you to think about that, folks, that the Father has said through Jesus Christ that if you love me, hear my words, keep my commandments, and I will manifest myself to you. He will live in you. He will dwell in you. May the Almighty Father bless each and every one of you. And please remember, all that you need is Jesus. That's all that you need. Hold on to Jesus and you can't get swept away in the flood. May the Almighty Father bless each and every one of you and your families, your animals, and your household. In the name of Jesus the Christ.